Hey everybody, it's Brooke with the Shed Barbeque Blues Joint. I am extremely excited today to be cooking up a beautiful family meal for Brad, my business partner at the Shed, and brother and his family. We are cooking a red barbecue pork stir fry using Prairie Fresh pork tenderloins and all of this beautiful landscape of color and texture with vegetables and liquid seasonings as well as dry seasonings and soba noodles. So let's get started.
Now's the time to pause the video, read the ingredient list and recipe. Take a minute to get everything you need and then come back and follow us step by step as we prepare this recipe.
So let's get started. In my wok, it's super hot right now because we are stir frying. I've added a little bit of canola oil. I am also, now you can use vegetable oil as well. I'm also gonna add a little bit of pure sesame oil. And then we're gonna get started. So I like to cut my vegetables where they are, there we go, where they are all pretty consistent in size because you want them to cook about the same, you want them to take about the same time cooking. And I also like to take my vegetables and layer them into the wok, into this matador, as I feel like they're gonna cook. Meaning, if you have squash and zucchini that takes a little bit longer to cook than your shredded carrots or your mushrooms, you want to add your squash and zucchini first and layer it in so that you don't end up with any mushy vegetables. And of course, at the end, we're going to put our star in, and that's Prairie Fresh pork tenderloin. We are going to stir and cook this down, and when these get just a little bit tender, we're gonna start adding a little bit of ponzu sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, and our broccoli. You can smell that sesame oil. It smells absolutely divine. I like sesame oil because it's very savory, but I like to cut it with some vegetable oil or some canola oil just because it can be very, very powerful, the flavor of it. All right, so now we've got our broccoli. Now, as you can see, these vegetables have already absorbed quite a bit of the oil, but that's okay because all that oil is gonna transition over to my other vegetables. What I am gonna start adding to this is the flavor profile. So I love to add a little bit of soy. You can use low sodium. I like regular soy, but it really depends on how much salt content you want. What's beautiful about this dish is you can make it your own. You can use any kind of vegetable, any kind of seasoning. Just remember the one key element is you've got to have that Prairie Fresh pork tenderloin. But as far as your seasonings and your vegetables, I like to just pull out everything in the refrigerator and, you know, use the kitchen sink, as they say. I'm gonna add a little bit of ponzu. That ponzu sauce, that particular one has a little bit of lemon to it, so it's got some acid in it, but I also have fresh lime that's gonna create a nice little acidic layer to everything. Creating mealtime and gathering the family around, to me, is one of the most important things you can do. So we love to cook big pot dishes in the South. All right, we have a little bit of ponzu sauce, our soy sauce, our sesame oil, canola oil, and then we're gonna move on. We've already put our broccoli, zucchini, and squash in there. We're gonna add snow peas, and I'm gonna stir those up really good. I like the snow peas to stay a little bit crunchy, just because I feel like every dish needs a crunchy element, and so I utilize the snow peas for that in this dish. So we're just gonna give this a good stir, and then we're gonna add our mushrooms in. Look how beautiful that is. Look at the texture. Now, I don't measure the liquid seasonings because you never really know how much absorption rate you're gonna get with the vegetables because they like to soak everything up. So I just keep adding as I go. But again, ponzu is kind of my go-to. A little bit of soy, gotta kind of be a little careful with that because it can get really, really salty. I love fresh citrus. I mean, there's been times where I have incorporated lemon, orange, any kind of fresh citrus that I have sitting around the house. Today we're using some lime. So we're gonna add that lime juice. And I'm gonna go ahead and add my carrots. Give it a good stir. I'm gonna go ahead and add our baby corn, our water chestnuts, give those a good stir, and crank the heat up just a little bit, but not too much. Our pork stir fry is looking fantastic. All of the vegetables are done. They've got a nice little crispy element to them, not too mushy. We wanna be careful with that. We're gonna go ahead and put in our stir fry sauce. Now, stir fry sauce, as well as other sauces that I like to use with this dish, like hoisin, they're really high in sugar. So I like to incorporate it at the end so that they don't burn. But they have an amazing flavor. You can see how thick and rich that is. Now we're just gonna give this a nice good stir. And then we're gonna shift everything. Our heat is right here in the center, so we're gonna shift everything out on the outer edges. If you like spice, depending on who you're cooking for, you can add red chili flakes, red pepper flakes, jalapeno, anything. Just really it's about making your mealtime really for the flavor profile for your family and what your family's gonna like. And today we're cooking for Brad and Kiki and their 5 little boys, so I didn't wanna increase the heat too much. So we went more savory and sweet with a little bit of acidic to it. All right. These Prairie Fresh pork tenderloins are absolutely gorgeous. Look at the red on that. That red comes from that setsu marinade, which we marinated for 24 hours, and then we cooked these on the pellet grill. We're gonna slice this kind of thin, not too thin, because we like to have a nice bite to it. But I love the flavor profile. So this has a little bit of an essence of like Chinese 5-spice in it. Look how beautiful this pork is. We're gonna incorporate this into our stir fry. Stir fry is almost done. I'm gonna add a little bit more of my sesame oil because we're gonna fry these soba buckwheat noodles. Now we did cook them. I like to cook them a little al dente. I want them to have some really good texture to them because now we're gonna fry them, finish them off, and then we're gonna add our Prairie Fresh pork tenderloin. Oh, so beautiful. All right, noodles are in, and now we're gonna go with that Prairie Fresh pork. I love these noodles, they're super high in protein. Our Prairie Fresh pork is super high in protein. It's just a win-win. We've got all of our vegetables, they've all married together beautifully with all of our ingredients. I am gonna add just a little bit more of lime juice, fresh lime juice. I mentioned earlier, any citrus that you want to add to this, really any element, whether it's a vegetable or if you wanted to do rice instead of noodles, make it your own. Just don't forget the star ingredient, and that's Prairie Fresh pork tenderloin. They cooked up beautifully on the smoker, and it adds just a great, great texture, and it adds, of course, a beautiful flavor to the dish. Now I am going to add just a little bit more ponzu and some sesame oil. And again, I don't measure all of these liquid seasonings just because you never know how they're gonna absorb and how much you want, and it's really to your liking. I mean, it's about making the mealtime great. Now, the star of the dish, Prairie Fresh pork tenderloins. We are gonna give this a big, hefty stir and bring all of our elements and all of our textures together. All right, lunch is ready. It's making meal times for your family and your friends. That's what it's all about.